consider myself an expert in, but by the looks of things, it looks like our 7-8 seeds are not comfortable to draw because of this match that's going on right now.
Yep. And so you do see Ryan Cruz on the left playing mono red. Deck list is very stock as far as things are concerned. The only real difference here is you find 4 copies of Boros Reckoner, no copies of Pyreheart Wolf. You're going to find your 2 copies of Stone Right, 2 Thundermaws, 22 lands, 3 Skullcracks in the main, and one of his lands is the Hellion Crucible. No Rogue's Passage, so that's about it.
And Jonathan Senn is on your right. He's playing Jund, much more of a controlling list, sort of a throwback. His one piece of weirdness, if you want to call it that, is 2 main deck copies of Ground Seal. Other than that, it's Huntmaster, Thragtusk, Olivia, Nighthawk, Liliana the Veil, Garrett Primal Hunter, Ultimate Price, Pillar of Flame, Bonfire, Farseek, Slaughter, 2 main deck Slaughter Games, 2 Rakdos Returns, and a Dreadbore. So we've seen sort of drawn mid-range control decks before. They're basically trying to prey on aggressive decks by having a good suite of removal backed up by durable threats and life gain, and this is a pretty classic example of that build.
So we do see both players underway here. Jonathan Senn is going to lead off with a Dragon Skull Summit. You're going to see Ryan Cruz play a Rakdos Cackler, unleash it, and we are underway here. Round 10 of 10 Star City Games Open Series in Atlanta. Pillar of Flame going to take care of the Cackler. And we're going to see a Kessig Wolf run. I did see in Jonathan's hand a Farseek. Begs the question, does he have the green mana? As Ryan's going to play an Ash Sultan.
That's a bad sign because most of his lands come into play tapped.
Yeah.
So if he had one of them, you would assume he would have played, you know, a Rootbound Crag or Stomping Ground, something. Yeah. That Kessig Wolf run's a really bad sign for him.
As you see an Ash Zealot come across, you saw Slaughter Games being drawn for Jonathan. Ryan's going to play a Mountain, come across with a Zealot. We're going to see an Ultimate Price take care of that. And we don't have any follow-up as we see a Searing Spear in Ryan's hand.
A lot of lands in his hand. I don't know if he's got another big threat to capitalize, but certainly Jonathan giving him some time, stalling on lands and not having green mana.
We see a Lightning Mauler here. Let's see if Jonathan can draw a green land. We'll get him out of this very well. Even if he has to take 2 to do it, because he can find 1 green land and Farseek into another one, and then his deck's online.
Yeah, then everything gets... Yeah, it looks like he has 7 cards in hand and has to say go.
Boros Reckoner, the draw step here for Ryan.
You pair him up.
And they're going to get you. And that's going to be 5 points of damage coming across. So now Ryan drew out of his small glut here, and now he's doing pretty well.
Yeah, and then now we're at the point where even if he rips green mana, it's not clear it's going to be in time.
Yeah.
And certainly not that source of green mana, as there's another turn delay.
Some of the advantages that you see here of playing a monocolor deck versus a 3-color one.
Yep.
So you do see Ryan draw another Lightning Mauler. The current Lightning Mauler and the Boros Reckoner are going to come across for 5 more. We're going to knock Jonathan Senn down to 8. Post-combat, you'll see the new Lightning Mauler. And just to pass back, Ryan sandbagging a Searing Spear, another mystery card. I think the other one, Patrick, is a Pillar of Flame. Might be a Skullcrack, though. Those are the spells that are in his deck. You're going to see a Liliana the Veil.
A little late to the party.
Yep. I'm going to sacrifice that.
And now the Searing Spear should finish this off.
Yep. And we'll see a draw step here. We're going to see another Boros Reckoner and just get in there. You know, obviously I think Jonathan can assume that there's a Searing Spear in Ryan's deck, but, you know, it doesn't have to show it to him.
Yeah, for sure.
Which is nice.
Right, because you also, you don't know if he's maybe flex slotted that into Skullcrack.
Yeah.
So there's no reason to show it until you have to.
And so he was able to draw another Boros Reckoner and just get the job done without having to show him any of his spells, which is good for him. Doesn't want to give away any information. But either way, Ryan Cruz up a game with his mono red deck against Jonathan Senn's. And outside of needing to draw actual mana, you know, taking a look at his sideboard, what does he have here that can turn things around against a mono red deck?
He's actually got a lot of action in his sideboard. He has 2 copies of Abrupt Decay. I think that's a card that's going to become a lot more significant in these Jund sideboards going forward because of the Boros Reckoner. He has another Bonfire of the Damned, so he can go up to 4. He has another Pillar of Flame, he can go up to 3. 2 more Vampire Nighthawks, he can go to a full playset. And then he has 2 Barren Bloods he probably doesn't want here. Duresses probably doesn't want. Gravedigger's Cage. Another Liliana he may want, and then Rakdos Return and Slaughter Game probably doesn't want to touch. So some of his weird metagame choices, like the 2 main deck Slaughter Games and the 2 main deck Ground Seals, he gets to cut and add just some more Haymakers and Nighthawks, Bonfires, pillars and abrupt decays.
Yeah. Taking a look at the mono red side of things here, being on the draw is a lot different than being on the play in this particular matchup, especially if there's a Farseek on turn 2 from Jonathan. But you are going to find an additional Skull Crack here, another Pillar of Flame as well. If he wants to board into more Thunder Moss, he does have a Cavern of Souls in his sideboard to go along with those 2 copies of Zealous Conscripts. Bit of a combo there.
Yep.
Board into 23 lands and be able to actually cast those cards. 2 copies of Mizium Mortars as well. You're also going to find 2 copies of Reckless Wave, not for this matchup, of course. 2 copies of Trader's Blood, 2 copies of Thunderbolt, and 2 copies of Volcanic Strength. So a card that we've talked about a little bit over the course of this weekend. Now, taking a look at this deck, and I know you know the mono red deck a little bit better than I do. I'm trying to think of cards that jump out to me that he wants to sideboard out here, especially being on the draw. Stonewright seems rather unimpressive.
Well, the big one, because there's so many different ways you can build Jund. You can build with, like we've seen before during today, where you have Deathrite Shamans, or you have Manic Creatures, or whatever the case. The big question mark is, what do you value Pillar of Flame at?
Sure.
Because that's ideally the card you will want to cut, and if I was in Ryan's position with the deck list in front of me, that would be the first card to go.
Sure.
He might not know that Jonathan's the more controlling style with no Manic, no Arbor Elves, something like that, no Deathrite Shamans, and so he might leave Pillar in, even though I'm sure he wouldn't if he knew. So that's the big question mark, is whether or not he's willing to ditch those pillars and risk something like Arbor Elf or Deathrite Shaman becoming a lot better, or if he assumes that, you know what, those cards probably aren't here, I can ditch these pillars and then his deck becomes much more efficient.
True.
And I actually think that Reckless Wave probably comes in any match he's on the play, would be my guess.
Just board him in anyway?
Yeah, I mean, Reckless Wave is a card I think is awesome. It's a little bit worse in this metagame now than it was, I think, 4 months ago, 6 months ago. It was very well situated. Of course, when you're on the draw, it's just much worse. So using a couple of sideboard slots on Reckless Wave, I think, is totally reasonable. Because like I've said in the past, the red deck rarely is able to maximize its sideboard efficiency because you need to keep your threats intact, you need to have your burn spells. And so you can't be boarding in 8 weird cards in every single matchup.
Sure.
So Reckless Wave is just a way to just improve your deck in general when you're on the play.
Sure.
And you're not really using those sideboard slots for something more efficient than that. Sure. So I think that's a totally fine use of slots.
Again, for this matchup, I think it's very important for the mono red deck to win game 1. Being on the play or the draw, just so that I think that often in this matchup, this is going to be a 3-game set, barring mulligans, and having the Jund deck on the play for the second game, it's hard to win when you're on the draw against Jund with mono red. There's so much removal, there's Thragtusk, there's the Huntmaster of the Fells. It's just pretty difficult to win there. But being on the play game 3, especially after your sideboard, it's so you have more of your better cards and some of your worst cards out. I think that's the big deal. So Ryan winning game 1 in this matchup, clutch. Yeah,
and the Radmaker duels also do a lot to change that, what you're describing, because if Jonathan's going to be under the gun, which is more likely while he's on the draw, he's more likely to have to play his Rad duels untapped. Ideally, what he wants to be doing is just finding ways to control the tempo of the game and putting his Rad duels into play tapped as much as possible, and then eventually taking over with his Nighthawks and his Thragtusks, his Huntmasters. When he's on the back foot, he might not have that choice, and those 2 points or 4 points or whatever it is can be the difference between winning and losing.
And now you're going to see Jonathan take a mulligan very, very quickly. And if you're Ryan, you're doing a mental fist bump here because, again, being on the draw in this matchup, after sideboard where Jonathan's able to take out some of his worst cards. He has main deck Slaughter Games, not good here. Main deck Rakdos Return, again, not very good here. Garrett Primal Hunters, too slow.
Yeah.
Be able to get some of the garbage out, get the real cards, and you see him taking a mulligan here. This is part of competitive Magic. This is something where things can break your way, and you see one mulligan here from Jonathan can make all the difference, again, because now he has 1 less card to be able to navigate his lands the way he wants to.
And a reason I'm not a huge fan of the Jund deck in general, it's a control deck where all of its card advantage is contextual. It's predicated on your opponents caring about certain cards. Like Olivia and Huntmaster and Thragtusk, they're very good in this matchup, but there's a lot of matchups where those cards aren't really sources of card advantage.
Yep.
And when you don't have card drawing or even cantrips to smooth things out, as you see Jonathan going to 5 here, it becomes very like you need to have the right mixture of removal and threats, and not only the right mixture of them, but the right ones in the right matchups. And lining all that stuff up is challenging at times.
Yeah, especially when you can't manipulate it all. You hope that you do just draw all the right cards.
Although, in fairness, this is a frustrating place for Jonathan to be, because I'm pretty sure if you told him you're winning in this against mono red, he would take that against a deck chosen at random.
Yeah,
this is a matchup he's pretty well situated in, but.
Yeah.
game one, you know, he didn't quite come out of the gates fast enough and was without mana for a while, and now we're on 5 cards. Not to say he can't win, because like I said, Hummaster and Thragtusk are worth 2 or 3 or 4 cards at times.
And we've already seen JT Hendricks win on a mulligan to 5 this weekend as well, playing 9 mid-range, so it's certainly not impossible, as that is a relatively similar deck, all things considered, to a Jund deck. So certainly not impossible.
Yeah, Bonfire too can do a lot to recoup the cards.
Yep. We'll see Jonathan lay out 5 cards here. 4 and 5. Oh boy.
Nope.
It's a tough way to end a tournament. It really is.
Yeah.
It never feels. I mean, this never feels good. But you know, going in a 10-round tournament, you're 8-1. Things have been going pretty well, and now you're against Mono Red. You got an opponent who's kept 7 cards. Well, I feel from here, I think it's a good 7. I got a feeling.
Sure.
It's a relatively good 7, and you see just mulliganing kind of into oblivion here.
But if there's any matchup where I think Jund can win on 4 cards, it's this one. Because, like I said, Hummaster and Thragtusk are super powerful, and the Mono Red deck doesn't have a lot of ways to overpower that. It's basically Hellrider and Thundermaw, Hellkite, or bust.
So let's see what we can find.
Okay.
I think that was a.
We appear resigned to our fate. Yep.
So you're gonna see a Woodland Cemetery here.
And did we just rip a Stormkirk Noble? Pretty good.
Overgrown Tomb, just gonna pass it back. Hellrider, the draw step for Ryan. We're gonna see Lightning Mauler partner up. Here comes both. Gonna knock Jonathan out at 17. Counter on the old Stormkirk Noble. I'm just gonna pass it back. You're gonna see a Blood Crypt here, so colors beginning to come online here.
Yep.
If you're searching for positives, that's one of them. Mountain, you're gonna see a Boros Reckoner, so curving out very, very well here. In for 4, you're gonna see Ultimate Price take care of the Noble. So Lightning Mauler will just get in for 2. Boros Reckoner, threatening. You're gonna see a Forest. You see Olivia Voldaren there. While Olivia isn't great right now, it's not the worst card I've ever seen.
Yep, it's not shabby. I mean, and the game is being paced in such a way that Bonfire is actually a draw now.
Yep.
Hummaster's a draw.
Yep.
For as bad as 4 cards is, I mean, this is definitely not wrapped up.
Yep. Unless we have a Hellrider here. So we're gonna have three triggers. We're gonna knock Jonathan down to 12. And Olivia's gonna have to jump in front of somebody. And it's gonna jump in front of, all right, the Lightning Mauler.
Yep.
It's gonna take 6, go down to 6. Draw step. Is that a Bonfire?
Was that Bonfire?
Oh,
all right.
Boy.
I mean, he's gonna fall to 3 here. You know, it's not, or I guess he could kill Olivia. Yeah, he's gonna go to the head.
He's gonna go to the head. And I think Ryan's hand right now is just lands. I think, is that a Hellrider? He can't attack. Yep. Take a draw. Ash Zealot.
Oh.
Okay. The fun is over. Thunderbolt Hellkite's going to take care of business. So Ryan Cruz wins 2-0. Got a little bit closer than we thought it would.
I know, there's no doubt this is a match where, you know, Jund can win on 4 cards. That was a real game.